If you're listening to this podcast, there's a good chance that you're a hunter or you just enjoy the great outdoors. Now's the time to step up. There have been countless efforts to vilify hunters, denounce the legitimacy of the science-based wildlife management model. There's no science to this stance, and it is solely emotionally charged. We don't want to see what happened with the grizzly hunt replay itself again with the remaining large carnivores and big game species. It's a slippery slope, folks. We need to stand together. Now is the time for hunters to be united across all organizations and show our combined support. Please go to wildsheepsociety.com/act now and follow the steps. It doesn't take much time and it will help save the future of hunting. This applies to residents and non-residents alike. Please, let's use our voice and be heard. On with the show, folks. This is episode 30 of the Wilderness Locals podcast. On this episode of the podcast, we have Clay Lancaster and Aron Snyder. Clay has been a hunter, a guide, and an outfitter for the majority of his life, and you all know Aron. This podcast is brought to you by Kifaru International, the toughest hunting gear on the planet, bar none. Frontiersman gear, high quality, completely custom handmade knives made in the heart of the Peace Country. And as always, we're brought to you by Just Shooting Arrows, BC's premier archery shop. So you've been at it a long time, Clay.
Yeah, a long time.
How'd you get going?
Well, my dad got into it. I literally was 2 years old when he bought his first business. He started guiding, and they told him he'd never make a living hunting, and he decided that he was going to prove everybody wrong. And I was 2 years old, and that's just the way it went. And I started really doing guided trips on my own kind of thing when I was 13 years old. So it wasn't really an option. It was just told that's what you're doing, and just kept doing it since then.
Where was that? Was that in northern BC?
No, it started out down the Kootenays, actually, down by Fernie.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty rugged country for a young man too.
It is, but you know what? When you grow up in it, you don't even think twice about it because that's what you grew up doing. So, it just seems normal. So, but yeah, some of the stuff that we go hang out in, I know my mom would sit there and she'd cringe. We'd get going through the rocks and stuff, and she didn't even want to look, especially when you're like 11, 12 years old and, just starting to come into puberty and you're not coordinated enough to walk and chew gum, and you're running around the cliffs and falling down and getting up and away you go. And there's times she just shook her head. She was just horrified, but survived anyway.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can't imagine growing up like that. I wish I did, but man, that's cool. So kind of got you going and going down this path. And so you and your brother are both doing it, eh?
Yeah, actually there's a whole bunch of people in my family. My dad started it. My twin brother that passed away was in it. I am my younger brother. Then there's Jim, who's like my younger brother. Everybody thinks he's my brother, but he's actually my uncle. There's 26 years between my dad and him, but he's 4 years younger than me. And then my cousin Billy Ostrich is in it. My cousin Lana was. I've got another cousin, Jeff Barr. I've got my cousin Don. Then there's Logan and Charlie that were both outfitters. I mean, lots of people in the family have went on to do it that all worked with my dad. So
now Lancaster family hunting kind of makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. I actually had a guy come up to me at a sports show and he said, Lancaster family hunt. And I said, yeah. And he says to me, he goes, I got a family just down the street I'd like you to get rid of for me. No, that's not quite the way that's supposed to go. But he was right into that. So.
Hey, Clay, why don't not to dive in and take the part of the way, but I know the history so well. At what time when you broke off with your dad and you and Cam started your own deal, like for people that don't know, you guys pioneered, one, the helicopter hunting, but two, you were both two just dumb kids that I guess weren't scared to try it on your own. How old were you when you bought Nahanni?
Well, we decided to buy Nahanni. We were 23 years old. And I've said that a lot, that we were too dumb to know that we couldn't do it. Probably shouldn't have done it. We were in way over top of our heads, but we just didn't know any different. So we just moved forward. And I mean, the banks wouldn't touch us. Nobody would look at us. So, I mean, I literally made 1,000 phone calls or more to past clients and stuff. And, and I made 5 different deals with guys to borrow money off them. So we finally got enough money borrowed and put it together so we can make our down payment. And then we had to make payments after that. And then we had to pay those 5 guys back. I mean, when we started doing it, we were like, yeah, we can do it. We can do it. We can do it. And then we didn't really know what was involved with it, but, we guided a lot and we knew how to work hard and put those 2 things. My first years up there, I think I was doing 12 or 13 backpack sheep hunts every year myself. So I'd start the season I'd eat milkshakes and everything like crazy so I could put weight on, and I'd use 40 to 45 pounds in the season. So
there's a photo that you should send these guys for the cover of this. And it's Clay, and he's in I'm not shitting Daisy Duke jean shorts, that Lancaster cowboy hat, and a freight, probably like a Camp Trails or whatever it was, frame pack, and a giant sheep. And you were what, 24 in that photo, 25?
Nah, I can't even remember. Not so long ago, but that is a classic picture. I mean,
sounds amazing.
You laugh for half an hour when you've seen it. I don't even know where that picture is anymore. So
it's in Aron's office, probably on his desk.
Yeah. Well, it was so hot out that, I mean, like hot. That's what we used to hunt in, was jeans all the time. It was, I think that year was like 34, 35 degrees Celsius out. So I was sitting there like, I can't take this. So I ended up putting my jeans down and I cut them off. I had another pair with me, so I cut those off. Well, I ended up getting sunburned so bad on my legs walking and hunting that just going through the alders hurt. And I got these stupid these cut off jeans on, and I'm sheep hunting and the things you do back then. But I mean, we sure didn't have the clothes and stuff that we do now, and jeans were common. That's what you did. Backpack with cowboy hat and jeans on. So, I mean, that was typical sheep hunting gear.
That's wild. That's so wild. Aron, I don't want to see you cutting off a pair of Sitka on Instagram, okay?
Well, as Clay can attest, my legs are so white that the abuse that I take when I wear shorts, it's not worth it. I'll just be hot because I did a video last year, just a tech tip on tripods or something, and my wife filmed it. And I said, we got to film it. I got to go put pants on. She's like, no, nobody will say anything. I think out of 180 comments, 150 were about my white legs, and people gave a shit about that tripod.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't seen Aron's legs, I'm telling you, if there was such a color as neon white, it would be a picture of Aron's legs. That's what it would show. Like they actually glow.
Oh no, that's gross. So what year was it that you guys got in a hanny, Clay?
1995 is when we actually put through the purchase and everything. And then 1996, we took over. So a long time ago.
That's wicked. And that's your guys' kind of home base, right? Your kind of main outfit.
Yeah. Right there in the Hanny Butte is the main base. And then we ended up buying another one. There's only 8 concessions in the Northwest Territories. So when the park came in, they expanded the parks. They wanted to take a percentage of the Hanny Butte area. So then we ended up buying an area that was originally owned by Daryl and Dwayne Nelson. Then Eric Mickelson had bought it, and then we bought it off Eric Mickelson. So Aron came up there with me in the very first year, and we cut our teeth loose on that. I mean, amazing country, absolutely breathtaking country. It's been a really good move for us. And to say that Aron and I had fun that first year would probably be a huge understatement, wouldn't you say, Aron?
Yeah, I've told the Argo story multiple times. So Clay walks into my tent with kind of an Irish accent, says, "You want to go on an adventure, laddie?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And like, what do we do? And he explained it. And part of the NWT outfitters, or that area was bought back, but it was just a sliver. But one of the guide shacks was on it, way far away from the main camp. So we got flown out there, and then he and I fixed the Argos and loaded up everything in those shacks and drove across some crazy ass country all the way to back into his concession, and fell a bunch of trees and built up a shack and pulled the Argos in. And Clay, why don't you tell a little bit more about that? It was a hell of a trip.
Well, we ended up, there was a tiny little piece of that area that actually ended up going to the park too. Well, then they did this stupid thing when they expanded. Well, we only had I think we didn't get in there because of the weather and stuff that year. There was a lot of snow. We didn't get in there till sometime the end of June, first part of July. Well, we had to have everything moved and out of there by July 10th, I think it was. So, I mean, here we are trying to get ourselves organized and fuel and everything flowing in for the season. And we don't even have hunters or anything yet. And all of a sudden we got to go and we got to move these Argos. We got to move all the stuff that's in this camp because the park's taking over this camp. So we got to have it out of there. We got a couple of days. So I'm like, all right, guys, let's go. And I want to say to get the rest of the stuff in, we had to build a dock or something too. And we were moving I think 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, but you got daylight almost all the time. So we're moving all the stuff out across there. And Aaron and I, at that point, I don't know if you had, but I definitely had never even drove an Argo really before. And we got miles and miles of this country to go through. It looks like the Beverly Hillbillies going out across this tundra. And we get there and I'm like, hey, where'd this go? Where'd this go? Where'd this go? Then we had to turn around and drive back and go pick up everything that we lost. And we were both losing stuff out the sides of it. And it's like, oh, I found that. We actually found everything that we dropped. And there's probably about 10 things that we dropped. We were laughing, got that done.
We didn't find it. I don't know that we found the chain, because I think you're still yelling at me for that. And I was blaming you. I'm like, well, you were behind me. And you.
Oh, no. We ended up, remember there was 2 of them. So we ended up with 1 of them. We did lose 1. You're right. We had enough there. Yeah. And then I think we ran out of fuel. So then finishing the dock, we had an old rickety handsaw that was in that camp. So we grabbed that. So then we're finishing the dock off at, I don't know, 2 o'clock in the morning, standing in the water. And we're both really happy at this point. And we're cutting everything off so that the plane can come in there the next day with some fuel. And it was like, this is crazy, but we got her done anyway.
Yeah. I remember you in your underwear, as I'm at the end of the dock and you're in the water, and we're pounding obviously posts into the water, into the ground, so we can keep building out the dock, and Clay's in his undies. And I remember at that point in time, between hands-on and cutting, I'm swinging, trying to pound these nails in, and you kept calling me lightning because my forearms were at muscle failure. And I think if I swung 6 times, I hit the nail. Or the spike, it was a rough go. We got it up.
Everybody was frozen. Everybody was wore out. We put in some big days at that point, that's for sure. So, but it was fun. So I remember you had a tough time pounding that day. You were swinging for everything you were worth, and I think the only thing that you weren't hitting was the nail head.
Oh yeah, I remember specifically. You kept calling me. You or Tyson were calling me lightning because I didn't hit in the same place twice. Because it wasn't good, but.
Oh man!
I think you finally grabbed a hold of the hammer with 2 hands. You had your tongue sticking out sideways in full concentration. You finally got the spike in there, and we got done so we could get out of there.
Yeah, I believe you're correct. But I mean, one thing in that area is a guy from the lower 48. You don't realize how vast that area is. Like, you took me outside, pointed west, and you see that mountain range. And I'm like, you're like, that's in this area. And you pointed to the east, and you're like, you see that mountain range way over there? That's in this area. And I was, just baffled by how large that area, was. I mean, how big is that area, Clay, as far as, like square miles or whatever?
It's probably over 4,000 square miles, I would think. I mean, people don't grasp how big some of them guiding territories are up there, but I mean, they're as big as some states. So when people start to realize that, and you realize it's not just a flat state, like it's a whole bunch of mountains and stuff, then they realize that, wow, this is a gigantic area. So the concessions up there are definitely huge. If you were comparing them to places in Alaska, a lot of times there would be, 9, 10, 11 other outfitters in those same kind of zones. That's how big the concessions are in the Northwest Territories. And probably, I think, some of the last true untouched wilderness there is left in all of North America, and maybe even the world, to be honest with you.
Man, I would agree. That and Tasmania are probably the last 2 that are a lot of uncharted. I mean, areas that man probably hasn't seen before. For me, and I've gotten to travel, quite a bit. I was just, in the lower 48, wildernesses just aren't that big. Even the big ones aren't that big, like the Bob Marshall or the Frank Church. They're still relatively small in comparison to the size of the land up there. But logistically, it's a nightmare people wonder why sheep hunts or moose hunts are so expensive, and including me until I went up there. Well, when your ass is the guy driving or riding with Clay with a, giant trailer and your bill's $28,000 at Costco, and then you got to fly the shit in and get the fuel in, and logistically, I was baffled by what you have to go through. A Snickers bar may be 89 cents, but by the time it gets up there, it's about $10. It's that much of a pain in the ass.
The best part was Aron showing up in Kelowna, and then we went to my place in Fort St. John, and that was a 12-hour drive. And then from there, we went up to Whitehorse, which was 14 hours. From there, we went up to where we launched everything off at the head of the Canal Highway, which is another 12 hours. And I remember we finally got there after 3 days of traveling, and Aron was looking at me and he goes, just how much farther is it from here?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Plus then it's 8 hours on that dirt road and then a helicopter flight in. It's, I talk about it. Occasionally people ask, and you can tell it's not grasping how big of a province that is and what it takes to get in there. I mean, we were on that helicopter flying food in for probably 6 hours back and forth.
Oh, more than that. I think it was a day and a half. We kept flying stuff in and out of there. So, and then we had to get that walk-in cooler, and we had to pull all the refrigeration unit and stuff out of it. And we had to, it was the only way we could come up with an idea to sling that thing in there. That was a pain in the butt, but we got her done. So, and if you guys have never traveled with Aron, I'm not sure if you ever have, but Aron drinks an excessive amount of water, which is good. I mean, he's healthy. I give him that, but he also pees every half an hour.
Oh, no.
When you're doing a 12 to 14 hour day with somebody, and every half an hour they're looking at you going, I got to pee. I got to pee. You quickly start telling them, either you figure out how to get a bottle that you're going to pee into while you're driving here, or stop drinking water, because we ain't stopping every half an hour. And especially when you're pulling a big load and you finally get past a bunch of motorhomes and everything that are all heading north. And then Aron would look at you and go, I'm really sorry, but I got to pee. So you pull over, and then the motorhomes go past you, and you got to pass them again, pulling the big trailer. And you do get to the point, you start looking at them and you're like, you're going to walk from here. I can see it in the future real quickly.
A full day of those 3 days was Aron taking leaks, eh?
Oh, he's not lying. I remember I never held my bladder as long as I did in that ride, because I'm like, okay, I give it 30 more minutes or he's real. Give me shit. It's been 42 since the last time I definitely take down.
And then the best part is Aron is an excellent photographer. I'll never take that away from him. But that being said, when you're trying to make time, and every time you see buffalo or a grizzly bear or a black bear, he's like, oh, stop. I want to get a picture. You're literally pulling over on the side of the road so Aron can get out and take pictures. In a couple instances, I have this little Boston Terrier dog, and to say he has a dislike of bears would be an understatement. So, but every time you stop, you got to make sure the windows are up and the doors are up, because he'll come barreling out of there and go ripping after him. So Aron was sitting there a couple of times, sneaking in. These bears don't know he's there. He's making this perfect stalk. He's getting awesome photos. And then he'd leave the window open just to crack, or wouldn't completely close the door. And that little dog is smart enough to get it open. And I'd go, oh, get over here, Gordy. And Gordy would take off running. He'd go right on past Aron. And then all Aaron's got is pictures of Gordy chasing the bears with it.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a good trip. I wish I could do it more often with my schedule. It's crazy. Clay, what's going on up there now? Does it look like they're going to open it? You guys got your fingers crossed, or?
Right now we got our fingers crossed. We don't have any official announcements or anything that are giving us the green light yet. When you read their whole COVID protocol, everything that we're supposed to have done, or that the government is supposed to have gotten to a certain point, it's already been reached. It's there. We're past all the goals that they set. And we still don't have a green light. So when it's going to open, how it's going to open, I have no idea. It's starting to get really frustrating. And I can tell you, not just from my point of view, I've got so many clients I had to put off last year. This year, we're at 50-50 at best. It is getting really frustrating, and people don't understand. You have a business, you're trying to justify, you're trying to be safe for everybody. But when you just don't see the numbers out there like they're talking, and I see restaurants and small businesses closing everywhere, it is really frustrating for a normal working person to go, what is going on here? So hopefully they can get it figured out. I mean, hopefully it's for the safety of all people involved. But I just think it's time to get on with life here. I don't like it when people live in fear all the time, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes it real tough on everybody, eh?
It really does. And I mean, the problem I suppose I have more than anything is when you walk into a Walmart or a Costco or something, and there's 800 to 1,000 people in there walking all over the place, grabbing all kinds of different things. And then they want to tell me that myself and some guy, and we each have our own backpack tent, is a threat, is a problem. I just don't see it. I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So, and then they try to justify, well, if somebody does get sick, then we got to get them out of there. Well, if they start to get sick, we'll fly them out of there. We've already put in protocols and all kinds of different ideas about us flying our own guys out. I mean, we've put screens into the helicopters so that the people in the back aren't in contact with the people in the front. I mean, we've done everything that they've asked, and we still don't have a green light. So it does get frustrating. You sit there and you wonder, why is it that we can have this many people in Walmart, or I can drive past the beach in Vernon and there's 4,000 people all crowded on the beach there, but I can't go in the backcountry with one guy? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And it never will. I don't care how much they try to explain it. It's never going to make sense.
Yeah. You see that. I mean, down here, like I'm 2 hours out of Vancouver, Clay, but even out here, you see it, the mom and pop shops are struggling like crazy, or they're closed, and Costco and Walmart and superstores just rocking.
Yeah. So let's not talk about that though. It just gets me frustrated and mad. So let's talk about hunting.
Yeah, for sure. So, hey, I wanted to ask, how'd that first season go after you had old White Legs up there helping you?
It was actually an incredible season. We had a lot of fun, a lot of really good, memorable times. I mean, the very first hunt we did was with an excellent client of mine named Billy Grissom. And the first thing I did is I said to Aron, I said, I'm just going to show you what I know about sheep hunting and try to teach you a bunch of things about how I age sheep and everything else and what I do in stalking. And anyway, long story short, Aron's taking pictures like crazy, and we're getting in there and we get to this place on these sheep, and they kind of go behind a rock. And when they do, we run like a bunch of crazy guys, hide behind another boulder. Then they move a little bit, and then we run, and we close the gap really good. And Aron's sitting there, and we get in, we end up killing this ram. And we had a big joke going that year when people were like, oh, where do I shoot him at? You think everybody at that point in time is going to know, put it behind the shoulders and go ahead and shoot him. And so we kind of had a running joke that year, just shoot him in the face. And I think if I'm not wrong, Aron, there was like 8 people that shot sheep and caribou in the face that year. Did they not?
They did. And some of these rams were close. Like one was, I think it was 32 wide. It was a good ram. I mean, it's 9 years old, 10 years old. At 82 yards, I don't know how he managed. He shot it right in the face. And there was also, and
it was never the first shot. It was usually the second, third, or fourth shot, and they'd be doing something. And it's like, you guys, I was kidding. Like, don't shoot him in the face. So.
Remember we were taught that the Charlie Murphy, Rick James kicking on the couch, and
yeah.
What 5 fingers say to the face? That's what that came from. Smack. Well, yeah. That was 82 yards. He stood up out of his bed, slightly cornering 2. I remember I'm like, put it in the shoulder, drop him right there. Boom. And I looked at Harder. I was like, I think he shot it in the fucking face. Me too. That's just where I think he was looking at the horns, and that's just where the bullet went. But
that's hilarious.
Anyway, but yeah, we were doing that very first stalk. We got in there, we rolled that sheep off the hillside, and it was aggressive stalk. Like, to say it was aggressive would be an understatement. And we closed the gap quick and just got in there, got it killed and everything. Sheep fell off a cliff, rolled down to us, got her all done. Aron looked at me and he goes, I'm going to really like this, he says. And from that point forward, it was just like everybody that came in, we were just going for it as hard as we could and trying to get as many critters as we could that first year down on the ground. And I like, again, we had a ton of fun. So I almost wish we could go back and do that season all over again.
Yeah, it was a huge learning experience for me. And I'm not speaking for all guys in the lower 48. For the majority of of guys. I think I'd been on 3 sheep hunts at that point, maybe 5. It just doesn't happen very often. And, the amount I learned, it catapulted me on judging and scoring sheep and the age as far as Clay, and you've done a lot lately, obviously talking about how you, the 4 in the crown or how many annuli you have in the crown, but people don't realize, like, you can judge, when I say you, Clay, you can just from seeing what the sheep are doing in a group. In fact, one of the only mistakes I made not listening to Clay, he sent Carter and I in and said, shoot the one-horned ram. And we're above these sheep. We stalked into 100 yards, and I'm like, there's no way that one-horned ram's a lead ram. And when you shoot the lead ram, they all stop and they don't know what to do. So to get a double, which we got a double on my first try, but we shot I didn't listen to Clay. I think he even slapped me in the back of the head for this. We came back, we had 2 rams, and you were like, where's the one-horned ram? I'm like, and immediately, like, you can't bullshit Clay. He's like, so what kind of a shit show is that? And I'm like, oh, it was bad, Clay. Like, they all ran. They're like, what happened? I said, well, we could judge the one, so we knew it was 8 years old. So we shot it running away. And I remember you looked at me, and I'm pretty sure you slapped me in the back of the head. And you're like, never fucking doubt me again. And I'm like thinking in my mind, I won't, because I immediately, when we shot and they all took off, I'm like, oh, Clay's going to be fucking pissed. But we ended up pulling off the double anyway.
Well, the thing that people don't realize, if you go to do a double header, so many people try to go, okay, ready, 1, 2, 3, and everybody shoots together. Well, somebody's going to screw up every time. And then it's a bit of a shit show after that. But if you're smart about it, you figure out what's the lead ram in the group. Once you know what the lead ram is, you make sure you shoot him first. When he goes down, the rest of them stand there looking at him to see what's going on, expecting him to lead out. And then you can take your other ram after that. So it's just a matter of deciding who's going to shoot the lead ram, shoot that one, then you shoot the next one. So but the good thing about it is that ram actually survived a couple more years. And I think he was 12 or 13 years old. And then Willie Hettinger out of Montana ended up killing him with a bow. So he was over 40-inch ram by the time we ended up killing him a couple of years later. So that was kind of a cool story. And he was ancient. I mean, as ancient gets. And it's always good to leave some of them old rams in there to teach those young rams where to go and what to do.
Do you guys guide a lot of bow hunters up there in Nahanni?
Yeah. I mean, over the years, if you look through the record books, I don't think there's any place in North America that's produced more archery rams than the Nahanni Butte. I mean, we have the one range up there called the Liard Range. And I mean, so many of the guys in Pope and Young have killed their rams off of there. And I had tons of guys over the years. And I mean, we had high success rate guiding archery hunters, and it was always a ton of fun. But you got to be an archery hunter to want to guide archery hunters. That was the biggest thing. And, a lot of guys start to get a name as being an archery guide, and everybody wants to hunt with them. Well, you can't do it. Like I used to do at times. I'd do 5 or 6 archery hunts in a row. And I'm here to tell you, you want to wear yourself out in a quick hurry. I don't care how tough you are. You got a backpack on every day for 30, 35 days straight. And, you're putting guys on rams and, we missed 2 today and, we missed 3 tomorrow. And you keep missing sheep and stuff. It starts to wear on you, and most of the guides are like, okay, I'll do 1 or 2 and then that's it. So it's kind of a thing. It's a bit of a juggling act when you're trying to get the right guides in there, because a lot of guys, they're not interested in guiding archery hunters, and it's a lot more work. It definitely is. So, which Aron can attest to. And I mean, I tell guys, you can hunt with a bow, but you got to be prepared that you may go home without it. And then you get the guys like Aron that want to shoot traditional bow. And unless they put a ton of time in, it starts to get to the point you're like, guys, maybe choose a different weapon here, because you're just not getting her done.
Your brother, when we were done with our goat hunt, when we were coming back, we were filming, he turned around and looked at the camera and he said, whoever's watching this, tell all your bow hunting friends to stay the fuck home, because he does not. If you're a good bow hunter, he's all about it. His thing, the same as yours. If you come in with a bow, you need to be able to do multiple stalks in a day. If you're good for 1 push, just grab the rifle, because it's not the guy's fault if you can't make it. And you have got the chances of it being a one and done are so slim. You've got to be able to do multiple pushes in a day or in a week. You're not physically capable of that. And that's not to say Bart or Clay, I'm not speaking for them, don't like bow hunters. but you need to be up for the task. And if you're not, you can't blame the guide if you can't get your fat ass up the hill. And it's going to take more than one trip up the hill normally, especially with a stick bow.
Yeah, no kidding. That was kind of going to be my next question. Like how many guys do you see fly in that are unprepared for what they're about to face, right?
You know, a lot of guys are. They have an idea in their head. You know, everybody's got an idea what they think it's going to be, but more often than not, you know, it's more than they expected. And when you tell guys, hey, you know, you need to be in sheep shape, then they all kind of look at you and they're like, oh yeah, sure. But sheep shape is definitely a different thing than just, hey, yeah, I'm sitting in whitetail stands, or, you know, I did an elk hunt on a rolling hill country before, so I'm ready for this. You know, you got to put some time in. You got to train. You got to be prepared. You got to be mentally prepared. And I've seen guys where, you know, especially with a bow, they get in there and they miss their first animal and their first stalk, and it doesn't all come together. And you watch their mental attitude is gone. It's like somebody jerked the rug out. They think that's it. And you got to be prepared that, okay, I missed. There's another one over there, or there's two more on that far ridge over there. Let's go. And like Aron said, you got to have not only the mental capacity to do it, but you got to be physically like, okay, now I can go over there and go do it. If you miss, so what? Get yourself together and go after the next one. But I watch guys, they miss one shot. And, oh, that was it. That was my opportunity. Guys, if they miss their first shot, you just tell by their attitude, they're going to miss every shot you put them on from here, because they beat themselves up to the point that, and they listen to all their friends that told them, oh, you're never going to get it. You're never going to get it. I've killed a pile of rams with archery hunters, but it's guys that set their mind to it and go, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And if they miss, just shake it off and get on with it. You know, it's like walking in the bar and trying to pick up the hottest girl in there and she turns you down. Don't just quit. Go talk to the next girl over there. But I've seen so many guys that they just go home and that's it. They're done. So the same thing with archery hunting. You know, they just quit. It's done. Won't happen. And you got to keep your mind in it. Like really keep your mind in it. You know, if you're a resident of British Columbia and you're going hunting for the first time, and I hear this saying all the time. Guys are like, oh, the first time you go hunting is the year that your ram's born, and 10 years later you'll get them. And I sit there and I think to myself, well, you know what? That's perseverance. Good. It's good that guys keep going and doing that. And maybe that's the mentality that you have to have. So.
Yeah. Hey Clay, I was just going to ask on your page, there's a ram on there. His one horn is really pushed into the side of his head. Did he have an old injury or something? Or did you guys kind of know why that grew like that?
Yeah, you get this sinusitis in a lot of those sheep. Sometimes it's a physical thing where, you know, they banged heads too early, fell off a cliff, whatever. And they end up getting with the actual core of the horn can end up growing into the side of the face, causing the horn to grow there. And other times it's just as they get that sinusitis, which is a common disease and stuff in sheep, which causes horn deformities. It's lack of the blood flow apparently is what goes to the horn base. It'll flow into parts of it, but not other parts of it. So it causes these weird growths and stuff. So it can be either or, but that's always what it's attributed to, is one of the two things, either bad injury at a young age or else sinusitis. So, but it's actually a little more common than people think it is.
When you first seen that ram, did you kind of think, what the hell is that?
Is it the stone sheep one? Or, I mean, we've killed a bunch of them over the years, so I'm not sure which one we're talking about.
It's a lady holding it, and it's kind of growing right into the side of his nose, it looks like.
Yeah, that was actually my ex-wife killed that one. That was quite a few years ago. And when I first seen that ram, she was sitting there talking about how big this sheep was. And I kept looking and he would turn his head the opposite way. And I was like, no, I said, there's a good solid ram up there. So then we'd switch places in the spot and scope, and she'd be like, no, it's huge. That thing is absolutely monster. And I'd be like, I don't know what she's looking at. And then finally, when he turned back, and he was kind of on the skyline from where I was, we were about 1.5 miles away. Well, I thought it was the next Chadwick ram. I was like, look at this thing. And he grew into the side of the face and kicked out. And we ended up getting on him the following day. And when we got in tight, I was like, whoa, there's something wrong with that sheep. But as soon as we realized he was kind of freakhorn, then she really wanted to shoot him. She was actually really excited about killing him then. So that was actually a really fun hunt and great ram. I mean, it was just under 40 inches actually in the longhorn.
Yeah, it's wild looking ram. So do you have another concession too in Mexico? Is it, Clay? Some tags down there?
I don't have my own concession in Mexico. Mexico's a little bit different. You go down there and you accompany your hunters down there. There's a bunch of different ranches, and I set up the hunts and everything through guys and take them down to the different ranches that are down there. A lot of the guys don't know anybody in the sheep hunting world or how to sell their product or anything. So they contact me and I help them sell it. And that's how I end up down in Mexico. So a little bit different scenario, but similar to ours where you have a set guiding concession. Well, they have their ranches, but their ranches are enormous. I mean, you can have ranches down in Mexico that are 100,000 acres. So people don't comprehend just how big some of these these Mexico ranches are. So comparable to, I think, some of the ranches you see in Texas.
Because some of them sheep you guys are pulling out of there are absolutely phenomenal. Pretty awesome stuff.
You know what? Mexico has seen such a surge right now. We're going through a really high time right now. We had a lot of unbelievable rain years, which you don't get. I mean, it's the Sonoran Desert, so typically you don't get that. But we went through a period where we've had a lot of really good rain years, and it's caused the horn growth to go through the roof. I mean, I've been down there for 18 years now, and what we're seeing the last 3-4 years is just incredible. I tell guys, if there's a time to go hunting desert sheep, it's right now. It's the best I've ever seen it. And it'll be like that for a few more years here, but we are the dry one. So you'll start to see it. It impacts those rams that are 3 and 4 years of age when they really need that good nutrition, that good green grass and stuff to grow. And theirs is opposite of ours. They grow in the wintertime. They shut down and don't grow over the summertime. So they need that kind of growth there. We hit a really dry year. So you're going to start seeing that 4 and 5 years from now. You'll start seeing where, the sheep are a little bit shorter and not quite as heavy. And it's because they're going to be suffering. And if it stays drought like it is down there right now, if we go through a second year like it, you'll see it again. And it doesn't mean there's not good sheep. It just means that your average ram is not going to be as big. Like right now, there's just a lot of really big sheep down there. And it's a great time to be in Mexico hunting desert sheep.
Yeah. Another one of I was just looking on your page there too. Another one of my favorite pics is I think it's a picture of your old man, and he's got a Trapper Nelson frame on, and he's packing out a ram.
Oh yeah.
That's one of the greatest pics I've seen. And man, them old boys were tough, man. Hey, wow.
I put that one in there. I did kind of a side by side just showing. I had a Kifaru pack of Aron's on and packing out a desert sheep. And then, I think I had on some icebreaker or something like that, or maybe it was a Cryptek, but I had some fancier new clothing on there. And with Kifaru pack, and then comparing it to the old flannel shirt with the Trapper Nelson, and just to give people how much equipment has changed. You think the hunting, it hasn't changed that much. It's changed a ton. And then the difference when guys sit there nowadays and I'm an athlete and I'm this and I'm that, and I sit there and go, we ain't near as tough as them old boys used to be. Those guys never complained. They were in jeans and a cowboy hat with a Trapper Nelson. And if you look at a Trapper Nelson compared to what Aron's building at Kifaru, we're a bunch of pansies. I'm just sorry. His packs are so comfortable. You put it on, you can have 75, 80 pounds on. You don't even really notice it's there. And I'll tell you what, if you've ever walked a mile with a Trapper Nelson with 10 pounds on, you'll know what a rough pack is. And you'll know why those guys had back problems.
Yeah, unbelievable. I have a few. I actually collect some Trapper Nelsons. I do some mounts with them and throw them on the wall, but that's about it. I don't really want to wear one.
I have them, and I've got I think 4 or 5 of them. And I was actually thinking that it's about time that Aron puts one on and uses it for a whole hunt, just so that he can realize where the evolution of backpacking has came to, that he's kind of introduced to the world. But I really think it would be very important to film a trip, some type of a sheep hunt with Aron wearing a Trapper Nelson. I don't know with you guys, but I think we could maybe get a thing going out there, or boat, where Aron has to wear it for a whole hunt, especially packing the loads he does. I think that would be kind of comical myself.
Good Lord. Let's not talk about that. I posted that video recently of me packing out a whole sheep. I had to block like 15 people and delete comments. Everybody's calling me. But Clay, you've seen it. I mean, we test our frames that way. Like you were part of it, obviously, when I was up there. I mean, we strap as heavy a crap on that thing as we can to see if we can, if we can break it. And at that case, I only had to go not very far. The truck was only 300 or 400 yards away. But I got to say, I don't know what was heavier, that moose or that sheep. And it was a tough run because both of those things were, well, I would say 300 pounds or close to it.
Jeez.
But
yeah, the one with you,
awkward. That's the big deal.
Yeah, it was pride with the moose because I told you I could do it. So once I got on my feet, I'm like, well, I can't puss out now. I told him I could carry it.
What was it? Just a hind quarter, Aaron? Or what?
No, it was the whole moose head. There was the cape, the head, the horns, the entire thing together. And then I think there was some kind of meat in there, side of ribs or something like that. So, and I kind of bet him that he couldn't do it. So then he was going to show me. And what he didn't have in his brain is sometimes when you're older, you figure these things out. And I realized that I didn't really want to pack it down there. So by betting somebody $5 that they can't do it, and then they're going to show you because they're determined, it's really good because then I didn't have to grab a side of it. I didn't have to pack it myself. And he finally got it down to where we're loading everything up. And he looks at me, he thinks, and he looks at me and goes, I think I've just been had. I can't even look at him. I'm like, you have a good job, buddy. Good job. I'll pack.
You did it.
When you guys got me to my feet, I was like, I can do it, but this could have been a mistake. Good God. I don't know how heavy that was, but it had to be pushing 275 to 325. I mean, we didn't weigh it, but it was heavy.
Well, I mean, you look at the set of moose horns by itself, cut off as a skull cap without the head or cape or anything. I mean, you're easily 70, 80 pounds on a big bull like that. So you start talking those 67, 68 inch bulls like that, they're enormous. And then, I mean, a green hide on a moose, especially taking a full one when the guy did a pedestal like that. I mean, you got to be 130, 140 pounds of that. That's not even including the skull. So yeah, you start pushing 300 pounds real quick.
Yeah. Hey, why don't you talk about, because it happened to me. I think you cursed me 2 years later. I had a rear quarter of my moose and some other, when I was with Wiener's kid, Devin. And exactly the same thing happened. I was ahead trying to get down to the vehicle and I fell and my head got wedged into the snow and I'm kicking, trying so Devin can't see me because I don't want to make fun of me, but I couldn't get out from the freaking antlers. And Devin, all he could hear was, and he's wandering around in circles trying to find me to get. But you told me that story that happened to you. How long ago was that? That was with probably a Camp Trails or Barney's.
I did the same thing. I put a head and cape and everything on and some meat. And, you start getting packs that heavy and you're like, oh, I can do it. Well, I went down and I got to a place where I was going through these willows and it was kind of muddy and the horns kind of hung up on me. So I shifted really hard, pulling with the right side first. And I thought I'd pull with the right side, then pull with the left side. But when you get that kind of weight on and it shifts on you like that, and it came through the alders, well, it just pivoted me and twisted me and I couldn't hold it. And it just, because my feet were in the mud, and it ended up face planting me down in the mud. And the points of the moose ended up kind of holding my hand. So it was like somebody had pinned me there. My face was down in it. My feet were kicking like a little kid. Those guys came along like 15 minutes later, got to camp. They're like, where's Clay? So they walked back up a little bit and I'm sitting there face down, kind of side of my face stuck up, trying to suck air in. These guys are laughing so hard they can't help me. And I'm like, get it off. And I couldn't move. Like I was actually pinned right there. And it's funny because people think, oh, you can move, you can do this, you can do that. Well, I've had about 3 times in my life between myself and a couple other people where I've seen it where guys are actually stuck. You can't move, you can't do anything. And you think, okay, maybe I should not put quite this much weight on my pack. So, but it's a learning curve. We all got to go through it.
Yeah, I learned the hard way.
Yeah, that's an unreal amount of weight though. Doing that, that's crazy. And it's not for me either. I packed a way too much weight, way too far this past season, out of that area that you and I were talking about before we started this, Clay. And I was like, no, I'll just make 2 trips next time. Forget that.
Yeah. You know, as you get older, you start to wisen up a little bit. And you start to go, you know what? I just don't need to put that much weight on my back. And you think it's not going to catch up to you. Well, I turned 50 this year, and I'm here to tell you that you've got to do things quite a bit differently as you're getting older compared to, you know, you're 20 years old. You think you're indestructible, but some of those things you do, they do catch up to you. So you got to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of going back to the evolution of gear a little bit. I often, find myself reading those old guide and outfitter books and stuff like that. And you see the photos of them in their jeans and their flannels. And I wonder if they'd roll over in their grave if they saw the stuff people complain about now, you know, like not having the lightest rain gear on earth and stuff like that. It's sort of funny.
Well, I look at some of the comments once in a while what Aron's dealing with when people are upset about a buckle that's not holding the way they wanted it to. I mean, it could be something as simple as a piece of plastic not on there. It's like, well, change the buckle, you know, and the things they whine about compared to, we used to have these old camp trail packs. I remember when I first started out, you know, freeze dried was just starting to come into play. So when I went out, I had steaks with me and I had cans of beans with me. And, you know, my packs were 120 pounds for 3-4 days. And you go out and then you come back and resupply. And I mean, those old camp trail packs we had, those are horrible. I mean, they did beat the heck out of you. You were sore as hell when you come back from it. And when you look at guys complaining about, oh, this didn't fit quite right and this pad's not quite right, and you look at the evolution of what packs have done, it's like you have nothing to complain about. And then I see guys all the time, and I mean, I don't know how they're packing, but I'm to the point now where I can have 10 days worth of food, feel like I got a lot of extra amenities and everything, have my camera equipment and stuff with me, and I'm not even 50 pounds anymore.
Yeah, that's wild.
And I mean, 50 pounds was a day pack back then. So when I see guys complain nowadays, I was like, you just got to suck it up a little bit, princess. You'll be tough.
I just read something the other day in that Val Geist book. I think it's like Mountain Sheep and Man. He's talking about trying to keep loaves of bread dry in the backcountry. Like, what? Like, it's insane. I'm going to keep my loaves of bread dry. And it's funny.
That was commonplace back then, though. Like, you always had that big loaf of bread with you. So
I can't imagine.
But that's not the worst part. It's not the loaf of bread that was the problem. That didn't weigh a whole bunch. It was the fact that you had a jar of peanut butter and a jar of honey that you were packing with you too.
Yeah. I mean, even when I was a kid, when I'd be sheep hunting with my dad, we did everything off mules and horses. And I look back now, like, we brought eggs. We had pretty good breakfast. So things have come a long ways. Well,
but Aron still has a jar of peanut butter everywhere he goes. You can count on that.
Yeah, that doesn't change. You know, and I don't think, like, Clay, you know how much I eat. I tried to tell Mark that, and I think day 3 of the hunt, he came over to me and he's like, you've got to stop fucking eating. And I'm like, what? He's like, I did not anticipate you eating this much. I did not bring enough food. He's like, and I don't care if you starve, but I don't want to. So you got to limit it down to like 4 PB&Js a day rather than 8. You know?
Nice.
I eat a lot of food. I put down groceries.
That's awesome. So kind of go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I say, Clay, you've dropped some weight. How much? You just change up the diet some, and what went on with that? Because you were fit before, but you're crazy fit now.
Well, you know what happened is because I was getting closer to 50, I got done a season in Mexico there. My knees were a little bit sore. My ankles were a little bit sore. And I said, I've always been a bigger guy. And I said, I just got to figure out how to downsize right now. If I'm going to keep doing this, I'm going to have to get it figured out. So I actually dropped 45 pounds and
wow.
I managed to get myself in really good physical shape now, probably better than I've been since I was about 26 or 27. And it made a heck of a difference in all my joints and everything this year. And it was easy to do that before, you know, I just lifted a lot of heavier weights when I was training and everything and stayed on, you know, bigger size and could always get around. But I just found as I was starting to get older, and you guys will get that too, that you're going to have to start making some changes and downsize a little bit. And by doing it, I took a lot of stress off of my joints. I don't think I can pack near as heavy a load as I used to, but at the same time, I'm definitely a lot faster and a lot stronger now. So just depends on what you're trying to do. But it definitely made a big difference. And my big change that I had was just eliminating breads and sugar completely out of my diet. And it seemed to make a huge difference.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that, man. That's huge. That'll play dividends as you go further into life too, I think. Kind of outside of guiding and outfitting, what are like some of the hunts for yourself that you enjoy most, Clay?
All the mountain hunting. I'm still addicted to it. Everybody asks me if I've been to Africa yet. It's one of the places I haven't been to. I mean, once COVID and stuff gets off, I will get there one day. Mm-hmm. But I'm still pretty wrapped up about doing mountain hunts. I've been overseas in lots of places, taking a lot of guys over there on different trips into, pretty much all the Stan countries. And I've been to a lot of the parts of Russia. And I again, still anything to do with the mountains and sheep hunting of any kind in the mountains, that's what I prefer to do. Mm-hmm. And then lately I'm kind of starting to lean. I didn't really think much about it, just slowly harvesting some animals over the years. And somebody mentioned to me just this winter, like, how many do you have of the North American 29? And I was like, well, I don't know. I've never really stopped and thought about it. So we sat down one night and started counting, and I realized that I have 21. So I was like, well, maybe I might want to finish this, because I actually have a lot of the bigger or harder ones out of the way. So nice. I think that's my new plan, is to start focusing and get all these last few animals out of the way and get that done now.
What do you have left? Like,
I've actually got some really easy ones. It's kind of funny. Like, I've probably guided 100 mountain goats in my life, and I've never shot a mountain goat for myself. I've got Alaskan Yukon moose. So 26 years of owning Alaskan Yukon moose guiding territory, and I've never taken time out to shoot one myself. So, I mean, the ones I have, there's nothing that's really difficult. Probably the hardest one I have, I think, is going to be the Thule elk, but I've got that lined up through a really good client of mine now that's going to bring me down to California.
Cool.
And then I think my next hardest one I have is lining up the woodland in Newfoundland. And other than that, everything else is pretty straightforward. So
yeah, I think Newfoundland's the only place you can hunt the woodland caribou, right?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah. I was actually just talking to a guy from Newfoundland yesterday. I didn't know that until yesterday. So interesting.
Yeah. So
that's
how
awesome.
You got now, Aaron? You got to be getting them ticked off pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm trying to focus really on knocking out the big ones with my recurve, which is not the easiest thing in the world to do. But I'm missing some, like the desert and the stone. I mean, some of the harder ones are on my, side of things as far as total with the recurve and compound. But I think I'm missing 14 or 15. And I don't know if I'll ever. Polar bear's not real big on my list, like I don't know if I'll ever do polar bear, but we just have to see how it goes. But now that I'm actually financially stable and not broke as a joke, it's semi-feasible to a certain degree now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you're going to try to get it in this day and age, it's not cheap by no means. I mean, it's an accomplishment. But I think the biggest thing is, I mean, you're still a young guy yet, and you've got years and years of hunting ahead of you. When people decide to set this, it seems like nowadays everybody's they got to get it done in 2 or 3 years, but I don't think that was ever meant to be something that was done in 2 or 3 years. It was something that was meant to be a lifetime goal. So, and if I think the guy takes his time and, takes off some of these big ones every second or third year, like, you can get it done. I mean, just a regular guy can. But saving your money. When I killed my desert sheep, that was actually 25 years of saving up money to go get it done. And people are like, oh, you'll never get it done. But I end up getting it done. So I don't know. I think the goals like that are supposed to be lifetime goals. It's not a big hurry to get everything done in 2 or 3 years. I've seen guys come to me at sports shows and they got their list and they got their dates and I got to go here and I got to do this. And I'm like, that's not the way that's supposed to be. But if that's the way you're going to do it, give her. I mean, I don't knock anybody for their ideas behind it, but I just look at it as a lifetime goal and to accomplish it and try to remember all the trips that you've been on and the people that you're with. That's the important parts to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Boat on that one. I think the biggest, the Dall sheep hunt when things open up with you, and then a brown bear hunt are kind of my two primaries with the stick bow that I'm really wanting to focus on. And that was supposed to actually happen already, but COVID fucked that all up for us. So hopefully in the next year or two, I'll be able to get up there once everything calms down.
Aaron, do you know anybody Go ahead, Clay. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I interrupted you. I'm very sorry.
No, it's okay. Aaron, I was going to ask, do you know anybody that's killed a doll with a recurve?
Yeah. Denny Sturgis killed one with Clay, actually.
Oh, cool.
I think Dick Robinson's killed one. A few guys, it's not impossible. I'd say probably the craziest thing that I've heard of or anybody's told me was the Wolverine actually is probably the craziest shit I've ever killed with a recurve. So if I got accomplished that, which was pure luck, I'm feeling good about the doll. And quite honestly, I don't know what horseshoes Clay and I have on our ass, but when he and I are together, shit seems to just pan out. So, whether it does or not, it'll be fun while I'm up there. But I mean, it's
I think those horseshoes are probably made of like a combined 50 years of experience and like thousands of animals on the ground, Aaron.
No, I think it's because we're too dumb to say that we can't do something. We look at something that might be 10 miles away and we're like, oh, let's go get that. Okay, let's go do it. And there's no wise person between us going, that's not a good idea, you guys. It's just like, oh, there it is. Let's go. So then we get all the way over there and it might have disappeared. And we look behind us and go, oh, there's one over there. Okay, let's go. At the end of the day, sometimes we look at it and 30 miles later, it was like, where are we? We got a long ways to go to get back.
Dumb and Dumber hit the woods, huh?
I think the literally part of it when you're hunting with a guy and he's never down and you're both laughing the entire time, that's pretty fine anymore, where there's really not an unfun time when we're all hunting together. And so that helps out. For me, that helps out a lot because I have a really short-term memory in case I miss something, but also, Clay's one of those guys in my circle that doesn't cut any slack. So between him and his brother, I'll receive texts like, hey, you missed, you can call me when you don't suck anymore. But it's all in good fun because, there's no such thing as a participation trophy. It's just get after it. Don't, rest on your laurels and whine and cry. Just keep going and it'll pan out in the long run. And that's one thing with Clay that I can say, watching him work with clients, as long as he's done it, he can talk pretty much anybody to get into the top of a mountain. Now, it may take a while and it may take some coaxing, but Clay, you've worked with so many clients, you've kind of learned your own style of getting somebody to the top of their mountain in your own way.
Yeah, it is. You learn pacing. I always tell my young guides when they come to work, I say, you got to remember, it's not about how fast you can do it. It's about how fast the slowest member in your group is and how to get them there at a pace that's comfortable for them. If you want to take off ripping and just churn over top of the mountains, I mean, when I'm hunting with Aaron, hey, it's great. There's no questions. I can go wherever I want, whatever I do. Every time I look around, he's kicking at my boot heels. It's perfect. He goes, let's go. But not everybody's like that. So you got to have the ability to look at your group, analyze what you have, and realize that, hey, he might be good today. If I push him really hard, he might need 1 or 2 days off. So I got to figure out a pace that, is conducive to what he's capable of doing. And that's the big thing that young guides have a tough time learning. It's just slowing themselves down and making it fun and enjoyable for people. And a lot of these trips, guys do tend to get in their 60s or 70s before they can even afford to go do it. And then all of a sudden it gets to be a thing where, hey, I just want to get this done before I pass away. It becomes that thing on the bucket list that they really want. So you got to recognize what they're doing and what they're trying to accomplish and work with them. I do simple things like the Teltan Indians. When I worked with them years ago, one of the guys that taught me so much in my life was a Teltan Indian named Leo Johnny. And Leo Johnny used to do this thing that he told me when they were packing a lot of the hides over top of the mountains that they'd go trade with them. And the Teltan used to do a thing where they took 10 steps and then 10 breaths and 10 steps and 10 breaths. Well, I've used that so many times with clients where you just take 10 steps and you don't sit down, you don't rest. You just take your 10 steps, breathe in 10 good breaths and take 10 steps again. And it's incredible the speed at what you can actually take somebody that didn't think they could even go there and get them up over top of a mountain. And little tricks like that definitely are stuff that the guy learns, and you keep a guy's mind occupied and you chat with them and everything, and don't let him think that he can't do it and never talk about not being able to do it. Just keep going. And it really works well.
Yeah, that's awesome. You got pretty good grizzly hunting in your territory there, Clay?
Well, the Northwest Territory has actually been closed since the 1960s. So do I have good grizzly bear hunting? I have an excellent grizzly bear hunting if I was allowed to do it, but I'm not allowed to do it. And it's crazy that we don't. There's so many bears in the Mackenzie Mountains, Northwest Territories, and I really wish that they would wake up to it one day, but I don't see that happening. Once they close the bear season, it doesn't seem like they want to open it back up. But I've had places where I go to in the Yukon, and I'm up in Alaska a lot with some good friends up there, and I go up there with people. And, you know, I had really good grizzly bear hunting that I was lucky enough to be part of in British Columbia for so many years. And I hope British Columbia wakes up one day. I mean, our bear population is exploding. Any of these antis out there that think that there isn't bears left in the province, you know, hey, maybe if you're just walking in Stanley Park all the time, you probably don't notice it. But for the rest of us that are actually out in the mountains all the time, there's a ridiculous amount of bears.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, so many of them bears have exploded that they're killing a lot of the other populations off to a point that, you know, we're not going to have a lot of these animals left if we keep this up. We need to be harvesting some predators out there too. So, and it's really sad that anti-hunters that, you know, we close stuff down for political reasons, not scientific reasons. It really doesn't make much sense. So it is unfortunate. Hopefully it changes, but we'll see what happens.
Do you think it changes in BC ever, Clay?
You know, if we get a different government in, I would sure hope that it would. I'm not going to look into my glass ball and try to guess on that one. But a lot of times I think it's going to take, you know, a lot of these backpackers that are going into the mountains now, there's a lot more people that are out there doing mountain biking and backpacking. And unfortunately, it's going to take a bunch of them getting bit up and chewed up before somebody decides to change something. And that's what's going to happen. It is definitely going to happen because the number of ungulates that are out there for them to eat on is definitely declining. Between the wolves and the grizzly bears, they're doing a heck of a job of eliminating them. And I'll be honest to say that, you know, I love British Columbia. I'm born and raised here my whole life. It's been a place that I've never wanted to live anywhere but here. I've traveled the world all over the place, but we are doing a horrible job of our managing our wildlife. Absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's political. And the people that think they're saving the animals, they're not saving them. You know, and when you look at farmers and stuff that get to the point where the grizzly bears keep coming in. There was places where they used to call me and say, "Hey, Clay, we got bears." You know, so I'd go in there and get a bear harvested that was being a problem bear and get it shot. And, you know, I always give some money to the farmer for trespassing and stuff like that. Let them know that, hey, we're on here and stuff. And, you know, they'd have us come in there and now you turn around and it's completely shut down. And then those guys are going to go out. Those bears are going to die anyhow.
Yeah.
They're not saving anything. So that's the unfortunate part about it. And, but the population's exploding, you know, they're not afraid anymore. And they are going to start attacking a lot more people. And I've already seen the last couple of years, you see the number of reported attacks and stuff are getting higher. And it's going to continue to do so. So I don't see that part changing. So maybe we'll have a season come back in when enough people get chewed up. And it's really unfortunate that's going to happen, but it will.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. You see a lot of the arguments that are being made by the antis here in BC are very, they're not common sense arguments that they're making. I mean, I heard somebody recently using, coyote biology on wolves. They're like, oh, you have to remove 70 or 80% of them to make an impact in the harvest. And I mean, it's like, as hunters, we know, like, you know, you remove some of those species or some of those wolves out of that population during the calving time in the right areas, and it'll make a huge impact, you know, like for the ungulate population. Right. So I don't know.
It does. I mean, when you look back over the years, when there used to be a lot of the predator management that went on in the province of British Columbia, you see a direct correlation on the quality of animals and the number of animals that were harvested after that too. And, you know, if you're not doing, proper predator management, then your populations are going to decline. That's just the way it is. So, and if people don't want to see it, they think, oh, just leave it alone. Well, you wonder why you go places now and you don't see caribou. And caribou used to be all the way down the southern part of British Columbia.
Yeah.
Now you got to go way to the north before you really see caribou. And people say, oh, it's overhunting. It wasn't hunting. Hunting had nothing to do with it. Those seasons have been closed for years and years. It's the wolves ate them at the house and home, and so did the grizzly bears. They went into the calving grounds. If they're killing them all when they're calves, you know, black bears are just unreal heck on them too. When you're killing them when they're calves, when they're first hitting the ground, you're not going to have anything coming back in. And I've seen places, you go up along Williston Lake and watch those grizzly bears along the lake up there hitting all those elk in the springtime, and you can sit on the hillsides and see where you watch the elk come in and they'll go down little pits of wood here and there, and they start having these calves, and all of a sudden the bear will pop out, black bears, grizzlies, and they're walking along the top of the hillside, and they're getting that wind blowing up to them off the lake. And as soon as it hits them, they just turn and run downhill as fast as they can. 10 seconds later, they come walking back up that hill with that moose calf or that elk calf right in their mouth.
Yeah.
And you see the cows squealing and running around in circles, but they got them. And I mean, you'll see 20 different bears in a day walking those hillsides and going down. And I've seen those big grizzlies walk up and sit there eating one, get done, and go along a little bit further, go down and eat another one. We watched one bear eat 3 calves in one day. So,
yeah, it's rough. It's rough to see too. I posted a video on my Instagram, I think a couple weeks back now, of a cow moose and a calf swimming across the lake there, and with a grizzly in tow. And just after the video ends, the grizzly eats the calf, and that's it. So I don't know. It's such a frustrating topic because it's like, how do you open the other side's eyes? Like, you don't. And it's one of those things where I think more than saving the animals, they just don't want to see people hunt. Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate part. You know, the liberal minded people right now, they want everybody to do things exactly how they do it. Mm-hmm. And they're right and we're all wrong. So they can have their opinion. I don't try to influence them on what to do or what kind of shoes to wear or, you know, what they're doing with their life, if they're eating their tofu or not. But they seem to have a real yearning to tell me what I can do with my life. And, you know, that does get a little bit irritating. And they're supposed to be the liberal-minded people, and we're supposed to be the conservative, but they're the ones that want to dictate to everybody else in the world the way things are going to be.
Yeah.
And what they keep forgetting about is they're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And I really think that the silent majority is one day, you know, you're mistaking us as being quiet. When we decide to turn back the other way, they might get a surprise.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. We should get on to happier topics. So that one's, we can bang that drum all day and piss everybody off, and we'll all leave here angry. So I heard, I think even in this podcast, Aron brought it up. You have a pretty cool way of aging sheep.
Yeah, it's the way that my family developed. I mean, through years and years of it, and we added to it over the years, and it's pretty simple and straightforward. Like Aron said, you kind of just go up from the back part of the eye and then straight back from the eye. You form a 90-degree kind of crown area in the top part of the horn, and those are the annuli of sheep that are the easiest to see. And if there's 4 in that crown, you'll always have one you got to go up 2.5 to 3 inches from the base before you count your first one. So there's always one below that, and there's 3 out to the end. So if you have 4 in the crown, you know you're dealing with an 8 or a 9-year-old ram. If you have 5 in the crown, you're dealing with the 10 or 11-year-old ram. 6 in the crown, you're dealing with the 12 or 13-year-old ram. So if you only have 3 there, you know, you're dealing with 6 or 7. And it's 100% foolproof. And then I always tell guys, you throw it together, like Aron referred to earlier, is I look at sheep, I look at their movement from a long ways away, you know, identify which rams to pay attention to. And you can tell by the body stature, from the Roman nose to the sway of the back, to the pot belly, to the gaunted hips. Just by looking at body stature alone, you can tell how old the ram is before you even get close enough to even start counting the annuli. But those are all tricks that I've learned over the years. And I mean, I've looked at a lot of different sheep. So when you start doing that and you start, you know, getting on a lot of different hunts, you'll be able to recognize those things and be able to point it out and know what you're shooting, but long before you ever get to that point.
Yeah. So, yeah. We spend, me and my eldest daughter spend a lot of time along the freezer looking at bighorns, doing exactly that. Just looking through spotters, figuring out how old stuff is, hanging out, you know. Good practice.
Yeah, and you know, a frustrating thing I get is there's so many guys right now, and I mean, I don't mean to knock against the game department in British Columbia, because they have a really tough job. I mean, they're faced with a very diverse area, with diverse amount of animals, with all kinds of politics that they're dealing with. I actually really feel sorry for the biologists and stuff in British Columbia that are dealing with all the different issues they have. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, they come up with some ideas and plans, and politics overrides them. But the one thing I have seen is I really wish that we could educate the people that are aging these sheep and doing it a little better. They're not understanding it. I literally have aged thousands and thousands of sheep. I've measured annuli from, you know, first, second, third, fourth years, all the way through not only lengths, but circumferences. So to say I have a lot of experience in this would be a huge understatement.
Yeah.
And then when I see guys, and they sit there and go, oh, that's a 5-year-old ram, and it's some big full curl California bighorn. And I just seen some pictures last week that a guy sent me, and he goes, yeah, both my rams are 5 years of age. And I'm like, no, that ram's 8 and that ram's 9. And they tell me that, oh, these were aged by the game department. I just shake my head and I think, we need to be better on this. We need to be helping people learn this better. It's one of the reasons why I've pushed really hard. I mean, I've done clinics for the Wild Sheep Foundation. I've done them for all kinds of places in British Columbia and Alberta, other places in the lower 48, just on aging sheep. I just wrote an article for Eastman's Hunting Journal. I'm actually about 3/4 of the way done a book that I'm writing about it.
Oh, cool.
Just trying to help people understand how to age these sheep. It's really important that we do it, but we really need everybody on the same page too. And, if the guys in the game department, if they make a mistake, they're just so adamant that they haven't made a mistake and they want to fight about it and take it to court and everything. And it's like, you know what? Every one of us can make a mistake. You need to be open to it and look at it and recognize what's going on. And I see guys, especially when you're dealing with broom sheep and they sit there and say, oh, that ram, he's only got 1 year off. And I go, okay, if you only think he has 1 year there, that's fair enough. But, and the guy tells me that, oh, this ram here, he's just missing an inch of lamb tip. And meanwhile, he's 6 inches around the circumference where he's broomed off. And I say, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I want you to think about a lamb with a 6-inch circumference going around on his horn.
Yeah.
It's anatomically impossible. So you need to think about a year-old sheep that has that. And it's like, guys, let's just use our brains just a little bit here and realize that that's not going to happen. It's not possible. You got a lot more than just an inch missing on here. So those are little things like that I think really need to be recognized and understood. And, I think we need to do some courses on the people that are doing this aging all the time that, that are looking at a guy's rams.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of mistakes made both ways. Sometimes I see an 8-year-old ram and somebody goes, they count all the false annuli and everything, not even understanding what a false annuli is. And they go, it's 12 years old. And I'm like, no, that's an 8-year-old ram. So it goes both ways, but we definitely need to help everybody out, educate as many people as we can, and definitely have a lot of different guides and residents out there to recognize that this isn't as difficult as everybody wants to make it out to be. And let's all get on the same page so we know what we're shooting and get a lot better idea of what our herds are doing. And it'll get us a lot further ahead in the long run, I think.
Yeah, that's really cool. I look forward to that book, Clay. I think I did see the talk or the course that you did on Sheep Week there with Wild Sheep Foundation. That was cool.
Yeah. So I did another one for BC Wild Sheep here. Over some things with them, and I try to do it as much as I can, as many places as I can, many platforms as I can, and hope it reaches to a lot of different people so they can learn how to do it on their own. I know, Aaron, when you did it with me, you were shaking your head at first, but you picked up on it really quick, and now, I think you probably taught hundreds of people yourself how to do it now, haven't you?
I think we might have lost him. So we're that's awesome. I've heard Aaron talk about that on his podcast. Hey. There he is.
Here I am. No, I was just going to say the one thing Clay brought up to me when he was teaching me this is how many times you sit behind a spotter and have what you think are capable guys going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, counting the annuli. I'm like, well, fuck, Clay, every sheep I've been on is like that. We're now 15 seconds behind a spotter there. That's all I need. I'm like, no, it's too young. Where they're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm like, yeah, just stop counting. It's 7. It's that efficient and that fast. And it is never wrong. It's not wrong on Audad. It's not wrong on Marco Polo. Every sheep is the same way. And once you can read the body as well as the horn, it literally 20 seconds from a mile away. Well, not a mile away. I can't. Clay's that good, but half mile away in 20 to 30 seconds, I've got a real good idea of where we're at on certain sheep. Sometimes, though, with bighorns, a little bit harder to tell compared to a doll, but it's catapulted me to where now I'm never worried about shooting a ram that's too young, just for the simple fact of what you taught me in a very short period of time.
Yeah. And then, like I said, I hope that you went on, and as far as I know, because I've had a lot of people say, hey, Aaron, show me this, when you go on and you teach that same thing. And that's the idea behind it, is if everybody can get on the same page to realize that this isn't as difficult as we make it out to be. And then the neat thing is how a lot of the body stature stuff transitions over to all the other animals that are out there. And people are like, oh, no, you can't tell. if you're hunting white-tailed deer, when you start looking at a big old saggy back on them with big shoulders and a big old pot belly and gaunted in hips, you start going, hey, that deer is 8 years old plus. And, I've had guys that, oh yeah, I've been watching him for 3 years now. He's a 3-year-old deer. And you can see the big old Roman nose on him on a white-tailed deer. And it's like, that's not a 3-year-old deer. Look at the shoulders, look at the neck. So all this stuff that you do when you transition from one species to the next, it's actually very applicable to all of them. And I know that the more guys pick up on it, the more they look at those things, and you start looking for them, then you start to see it. And it makes a big difference when you're aging these animals.
Yeah. Hey, fellas, I got to go to a meeting about 3 minutes ago. I should probably hop off here, but I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, thanks, Aron. I was just going to say we're over an hour here too, so I really appreciate both you guys coming on and spending your valuable time with us. And it's been awesome.
All right, sounds good, guys. Take care. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Keep the wind in your face, boys, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review. If you want to support the podcast, please check out the gear on our website at www.wildernesslocals.net.